I've got to say that 2022, I picked a great book for myself personally. You know, I'm always speaking for myself. I can't speak for nobody else, but myself personally to start the year off with. And that book is All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris. Love this red cover. And there's the author there, Wanda M. Morris. Don't she look like somebody you can get on the phone? Y'all can be talking on the phone all day about all kinds of stuff. But I like, don't be talking to me about, well, we'll be talking about apple pie. That's what we're going to be talking about. Peach cobbler. But yeah, this was a fantastic book. I love this book. I am really hoping that the author produces another one. I'm assuming it's gonna happen because I saw this book. It hit my radar. I raced to Barnes and Noble and bought a copy at the end of the year. I think it was actually New Year's Eve. And then I saw it at Books A Million copies there. And then I just happened to go to the grocery store, Kroger's. And they had copies of the book there too. So I was like, I'm really seeing this book everywhere. And I'm hoping that that is indicative of some more books to come from this author. I enjoyed All Her Little Secrets. I know that's kind of rare for me to come up here and say, but I thoroughly did enjoy this book. All right, so anyway, with that out of the way, y'all probably like, okay, what is it about? What the book is about? All right. This book is the story of a woman named Elise Littlejohn. Now it's spelled, I don't know if it's Elise or Elise, but it's spelled Ellice. Elise, I say Elise. Y'all know how I am with names, and I'm not apologizing anymore. I haven't anyway, but still, the point is you can figure it out for yourself, but that's about all I got. That's all I'm giving, because I got to keep it moving. But her name is Elise, and she is a character who's between the ages of 40 and 45. And one of the interesting factors about her is that she's an Ivy League graduate, and she works as an attorney for this corporation, one of the assistant attorneys, specifically, of course, within their department. So there's the head attorney, and then, she works as his assistant. So the interesting thing about Elise goes beyond the gamut here, if I can try to nail this down quickly, because at the beginning of the story, I wasn't sure if I was going to like this character, given the fact that she's actually having an affair or assisting in an affair with the head attorney of this corporation. She's sleeping with her boss, is basically, and of course he's married, he has kids, and she's just down with it. She's down with the get up. But on top of that, at least in the beginning of the story, she has this almost this sort of like selfishness character about her. There's this really balance of grayness with this character of Elise, where she's sort of like perceived to me, or have I've gathered is she's sort of like the anti-hero in a sense. But gradually, as the book progresses, I start to like her more and more and more, and I start to cheer for her more and more and more, despite her misdeeds. Now, with that out of the way, as I quickly try to, color, the character of Elise and how she resonated and did not with me, Elise is in trouble. See, what happens is, because she's having this affair, her and her boss usually has this rendezvous point, if you will, that takes place early within the day, early within their shift. So she's coming to the office to meet him hour or so ahead of when the actual building opens and when all the employees and, clients start to come in. Unfortunately for Elise, upon the opening of this book, she approaches his office and she discovers that he has been shot dead and is slumped over his desk. So there's two things that takes place within her, two alarming decisions that suddenly wham against her. Number one, she can be exposed as his mistress, which she does have some connections to his wife. And number two, she could be possibly seen as a potential suspect in his murder. And so with that, because of the time frame, Elise manages to sneak her way back to her office and try to, reverse her tracks so that no arrows of suspicions could be pointed in her direction. She's more or less successful at that as the book progresses, but at the end of the day, almost immediately, instantaneously, that this is a character who has to think ahead of everyone in her surroundings, and sometimes even ahead of her own self. Now, she doesn't make the best personal choices, but the girl is smart, all right? And that's the problem. That's the thing, was a problem, but a thing at the same time that I enjoyed about the character of Elise. So the question becomes, who killed her boss? Who killed her lover. Now, the twist is that despite those elements laying the foundation down, suddenly Elise is tapped on the shoulder by the CEO of the company in a moment of swift upwards mobility to take the place of her lover slash boss. He wants to make her the head attorney within the department of this corporation. And Elise, as a black woman, she has lots of trepidations, hesitations, and she's reluctant to, agree with this suggestion of her playing or being the role of the boss in the corporation. It doesn't come down so much to her confidence. It comes down to her experience as contemplating as the only black woman within this corporation. Is she being led to some sort of, reputational ruin? Like what, she has to tangle with these things. But on top of that, still that dynamic remains that she still has to but she still has to make sense of how much of her taking this chance to be the boss is going to affect her in terms of her being a suspect to her boss's murder. Now, you would think that that's kind of the final layer, but one last layer I want to point out before I tell you guys how I felt about this book is that the CEO of the company is in the beginning stages of dementia, and he is surrounded by a bunch of different, I don't want to say sycophants, but they are a bunch of different, much more impeding and suggestive and forceful goons. And you would think that with Elise taking on this new position, that it was all up to her talents, all up to her confidence that pulled her upwards into this position, but not so much. The fact remains is that Elise has been plotted into this role to be operational in terms of being a proxy or a puppet to some much more white collar nefarious crimes that's going on underneath and within the books and documents of this corporation. And she is having her arms twisted behind her back because there's something, a little secret in Elise's past that she is being blackmailed against to basically either you do what we say or we gonna expose your ass. That's how they did my girl Elise. And that is where all her little secrets launched off. I hope I didn't give away too much, but I think that's just way too juicy. So with that out of the way, what did I think about this book? Shimmy, shimmy, Cocoa Puff, shimmy, shimmy, right? I don't know why I did that, but maybe it's because I'm excited. Miss Morris, when you write your next book, please write me an email so I can make sure I catch up with you. So there's really two things that I want to say that I enjoyed this book about. The number one thing I want to make clear is that this book had a reminiscent feel to my reading of Faith Snowden's book some years ago, in which there's this interchange between the Elise of the past and the Elise of the present in terms of chapters. So some chapters, so the beginning chapter, the prologue, introduces us to Elise as a super smart girl being set up, having received a scholarship. She's like the only black girl in her small town, having received a scholarship to go to this great prestige school to further her education. So she's moving upward from the small town to a much more larger, complex place in which she's going to receive a higher education. It starts there, but the troubling thing is that she's leaving behind an abusive family, an abusive mother, and she's also leaving behind her brother, who is going to play a key figure within the story itself. So we start there in Elise's past, and gradually, as we interchange through the chapters, which is what I loved about this book, as the author takes us back and forth, we gradually get to see what exactly was that key that caused her to land into her adult position of being the leader of being the boss of this particular department underneath blackmail. So we don't know exactly what her little secret is until the very end, but the author does such an amazing job to me of gathering the reader to take us into these intimate moments of Elise slowly, gradually going, moving upward as a child chronicled all the way up to an adult, and what it is was, what's the problem. So I loved it. I love it anytime an author can really pull in that whole entire scope of a character, especially one who, like I said, was as the anti-hero, I feel like, of Elise. There was like a lot of grayness with her. Just being able to get into that past is what made her a fantastic character later on. Didn't like all her decisions, but just knowing where she came from, what she endured, what she triumphed over. Bingo. Bingo, 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 bingo. I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to do any work. I just had to enjoy it and salivate over it as the author fed us that material in piecemeal fashion. Bingo. So like I said, that's the part that I enjoyed about this book, is that interchanging of chapters from Elise's past to her present. To, she does a lot of reflecting. She does a lot of self-doubt, a lot of questioning. And then on top of that, she has to make sure that she has to solve the mystery of what happened to her lover / boss. She has to figure out who is the one who actually committed the murder, and how does she, as this woman within this, a black woman within this world, this corporate world, how does she disentangle herself from a lot more powerful and low sweeping, low moving, but directional characters, the ones who can put all the pawns on the chessboard in place to get to the king, if you will. That's kind of how I kind of looked at it. So how can she override their will in place of her own singular the motivations, and I love that, with the commentary all involved. So the next thing that I loved about this book is, because I don't know a thing about no corporations and no lawyers, corporate lawyers. I don't know all that. I don't know anything about this stuff. But one of the things I always said is, in a mystery or in a book in general, I love it when an author can take me places, whether I'm familiar with them or whether I'm not, but mostly when I'm not. And Miss Wanda Moores took me some places. She took me places in all her little secrets, in terms of this corporate atmosphere, this corporate environment. That's always pleasing to me, because I don't understand any of this stuff for real, but I'm so engaged with it because it's just so illuminating. So I love the fact that she was able to tie in, the machinations of the corporate world, and being a lawyer and being an attorney, on top of the investigation, the speaking to Elise's experience as a black woman in corporate America, as well as Elise's personal life that does interfere slightly, to a degree, with I'm low key in that so far, to the actual murder of her boss / lover. So those were the two elements that made me really enjoy this book. It's the author being able to really round out and provide a full exposed, full composed scope of the character of Elise. I feel like without us peeking into her past and maybe just getting these moments of like reflection and exposition during the present moments, I wouldn't like her. I wouldn't have liked Elise that much. I'm like, well, girl, you were sleeping with somebody else's husband. So I mean, girl, I mean, I don't want this to happen to you, girl, but I want you to succeed in another way. But that was one thing, and like I said, it's that glimpse, that bird's eye, fly on the wall look into this corporation, this experience of this black woman in this corporation, and how she has to maneuver through this place, on top of murders and exposure to being a mistress, and etc. and etc. and etc. So all her little secrets was good. I loved it. I enjoyed this book. There was a little part in the end, the final confrontation, that I did just there was a little bit in the final confrontation that didn't all the way land with me, didn't completely land with me, because the author did despite her exposing so many things and giving the reader so many angles to look at this situation from, as far as the voice in the book, why would you skip out one of the most crucial moments that we needed to see in terms of Elise getting back at her enemies, if that makes sense, which I'm sure it doesn't. But anyway, in this fast-paced debut thriller, Wanda M. Morris crafts a twisty mystery about a black lawyer who gets caught in a dangerous conspiracy after the sudden death of her boss/lover. And that was all her little secrets. Wanda M. Morris, I want another book. I want another book. I want another book right now. And if you want to continue Elise's story, I'll stick with that too. But I want another book. Bye, y'all. Wanda M. Morris, I want another book, girl. I want another book. I ain't playing with you. I want another book.